All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Assemble. My name's High Ruler, and today, proud to be joined by Stardust again for Avengers Recap number 2. And Stardust, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, buddy. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right, man. Nothing better than quarter to 10 on a Sunday morning. Let me tell you, nope. Beautiful start to my day here. All right, guys. So today, what Stardust and I are gonna cover, we're gonna cover the Hawkeye announcement, and then we're gonna cover a little bit of the kind of dev stream, but not dev stream that kind of happened with revealing too much. And that's gonna be it, guys. So obviously, for people who know, Hawkeye had his deep dive this week on Tuesday, and I'm gonna get Stardust here to give his thoughts first because it's gonna take me a little bit to get my thoughts kind of straightened out here. So Stardust, please, what did you think of the deep dive first and foremost?
I think that the deep dive was actually really good if the game was in a better place. Now, what I mean by that is, like, say the game is absolutely thriving with content, everything that people want it to be, right?
Yep.
And they release this deep dive, and it's showing off Clint's moves, which they never actually went into that much depth, which was a bit disappointing because it actually looks really fun. Which
Mm-hmm.
is something that I think, like with the combat team in Avengers, you can never take away from them. I think that all the combat has been great so far,
Yep.
But yeah, that was a bit disappointing, but it left me feeling like there was this disconnect between, okay, war tables in my mind, especially if I have to wait so long for them, should have followed a similar pattern to what Kate's did, where it was like we've got this character showcase, then we've got a tease for the future, and some news and so on. And they went into more detail with Kate's, and with
Yeah.
Clint's, it was like recap, next gen showcase. Obviously, all of Clint's moves and stuff, with hardly going into detail. They showed three skins. Well, no, sorry, 4, 5 skins. And then obviously they slowly transitioned out of it. And I remember my first reaction to it being a bit like, really? Is that it? Like, because
Yeah.
I'm not the world's biggest Hawkeye fan. So watching that, it felt like it was aimed directly at Hawkeye fans and no one else.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you say that because I felt similar in some sense to you. When your first 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes of a 9-minute video or a recap of what we already
Mm.
know. Now listen. I know everyone for the most part has really enjoyed the campaign. Okay? Campaign was really good. I know they hold on to the campaign near and dear to their hearts as a development team because it was something that they're proud of. I get it. But at some point we have to just let it go. And I know that New Game Plus is coming and all this is happening, but we just have to let it go. Like, there's only if I have to sit through 2 minutes of the campaign recap for Black Panther, I'm gonna lose my mind, and I'm being very nice
Yeah.
about that because at this point it shouldn't be focusing on the past, it should be focusing on the future. Now, I'm not here to say, obviously Black Panther tease or whatever would have been nice, but even if they didn't do that and they took out those 2 minutes of a recap of, like, this is where we were and now here's Hawkeye, like, if you take out the campaign stuff and you just give us 2 more minutes of footage from Hawkeye, listen, there was more footage. We all know there was more footage.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, on the press release. Yeah.
yeah, we know there was more footage. Like, you guys could have given us more footage. You guys could have broken down a little bit more. You could have actually taken the wasteland information and actually put it in a video. You could have broken down some of the areas, some points of interest. You could have done so much more with that information. Like, there's so much more. Now the controversy is, like, Maestro. Couldn't they have done some breakdown of Maestro and how he's different from Abomination? Yeah, of course they could
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
Like, it just feels like they're holding on to the campaign at this point, and because of that, everything else is suffering, right? Like, like you said, the Hawkeye stuff wasn't even that bad. It was good. Like, I look at the Hawkeye stuff, I'm like, yeah, this is great. I look at the Wasteland, I say, this is great. I actually look at Maestro and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be fun. Controversial opinion. But,
Yeah.
the problem is like the video just started off so poorly, and then it kind of just transitioned into Hawkeye stuff. It didn't really give a lot of information, And then, and I'm going to say this, but, and I know Hawkeye fans are probably going to hate me for this, but there had to have been a greater conversation at play on Tuesday, right? I understand Hawkeye fans, this was supposed to be your day, and I've said this before. This was supposed to be your day, but unfortunately, it couldn't be just your day. The game can't support just a Hawkeye day when it comes to announcements, when it comes to stuff about the game. This had to have been this had to be more because of the situation and the context that the game finds itself in, but we didn't get the more. So I mean, Hawkeye fans, like, I know, like, this is a great day for you guys. You guys got your own kind of announcement. You guys will get your DLC character now. Like,
I
for you guys, like, that's great. But yeah, please go.
I think the thing is that, like, the thing that I feel awful about with Hawkeye fans, and I know a big Hawkeye fan personally, right?
Yep.
And I remember speaking to them on the day of the bad, very bad reaction to the war table, and he was gutted because obviously, for him it was the perfect war table because obviously it's talking about a hero that he adores, and the fact that people were obviously very upset by it because of all the other reasons behind it, which very valid, of course, but you can't now go back to the past and re-give Hawkeye his moment,
Yeah.
you know. So the fans of Hawkeye have kind of been screwed over in a way because of how the war table was. Like, obviously, characters in the future, if they learn from what's happened and they learn that, players like meat on their bones, they don't want to eat the leftovers that you've left from the campaign. They want to eat the stuff that you've put on the table right now.
Right.
um and obviously they can learn from that with future characters, but they can never go back and be like, okay, Hawkeye fans, we're going to do this again, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's disappointing, and it could be another reason for even Hawkeye fans why the war table was a bit of a bust for him.
I mean, you're not wrong there, right? Because, like, in sense, they're giving Hawkeye his moment, but in giving Hawkeye his moment, they're kind of shuttering everybody else. But because they're shutting everybody else, Hawkeye doesn't really get his moment. It's kind of like, it's like the snake
Yeah,
eating its tail kind of situation. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the problem, right? And then you could even, like, touch on, like, maybe they could have done like a week of news or something, right? The unfortunate thing is there's a few things that we can break down from this kind of deep dive, right? The first one being, it took 3 weeks to get to this point, and now it's taking a month to get to the character, right? And to me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. To me, when I saw March 18th, well, first, they talk about the next gen's launching at March 18th, right? At the start of the war table. So you're like, oh, like, next gen's just launching at March 18th. Like, no problem. And then you get through the video and you're like, oh, fuck, it's all coming March 18th. Like, and to
yeah.
me, it was a sinking feeling because, like, all the excitement that could have been there was immediately sucked out of the room. I remember streaming, and I remember before it started, everyone was like, "Oh shit, like, this may be coming, this may be coming, this." I was like, "All right, guys, I think it's coming next week." Holy fuck. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh shit, guys, it's coming March 18th." Like, that's my bad. You know what I mean? Like, and I think, like, when it takes you 3 weeks to announce something, like, it's like 3 weeks to announce an announcement, and then on your announcement it's like, oh, like, here's a month until the character. It's like, holy crap, like, like, what is this, like, you know what I mean? Like, I understand that, like, we only have two announcements to really go off of right now, so I mean, there's not really a lot of history to kind of base our to really base what we know about them and their announced schedule, whatever. But, like, there was a lot of people that thought, like, okay, like, maybe since they're announcing it 3 weeks ahead of time, it's like things are going to be a little quicker on a turnaround, and it turns out it's like the whole experience is now longer. Like, how did that happen?
I think another thing as well that makes the wait just a little bit more difficult, and by the way, I think that it could be considered a double-edged sword because I think the thing that people obviously want it to be so soon is probably an indicator of how good Hawkeye may have looked in the war table. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because when I
Mm-hmm.
was watching how awesome he looked, how awesome the environments looked, how cool Maestro can be. I really hope they do something different with Maestro, but um, and people obviously they see that release date and they think, man, that sucks. I want to play as Hawkeye sooner. I've never heard a lot of people say that before, right? Just from my
Yeah.
time of playing Marvel games. So that's impressive in itself. But then you've also got the other side of the sword where it's like we've waited so long for this. It was a 10-minute, well, 8-minute video really, because the rest was a recap of like Hawkeye, and then we have to wait a month, and that, like you said, sucked all life out of the room. I think if you ignored the release date, obviously, and just say it was next week for whatever reason, I think this war table would have gone down a million times differently. But I think because we have a month now, people are looking at the faults of the war table and the problems that are surrounding it and being like, well, actually, this was quite poor, this was quite poor, and so on. This is why the Maestro and Abomination conversations are coming up, because we didn't get a lot of Maestro, and
Yep.
people, are upset about things like Taskmaster being involved again. I really hope that's a dupe. Like, I hope that's a twist or something. Um, and they're looking into his move set and they're thinking, okay, that's very similar. And then you go back and you've got a month to look at Clint's arsenal in this video, and you go, hang on, the tripwire arrows are a lot like scattershot arrows. Oh fuck, is he a clone? Do you know what I mean? Like, is he just a
Yeah.
Kate clone? And then people start getting from really excited, like, wow, this all looks great, to we've waited too long, we've seen all the faults, we've pulled the sheet, from the eyes, so to speak, and now we've got nothing to look forward to because we've ruined it for ourselves, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that, right? Like, I think you're right. Like, whenever, like, if this was coming out next week, I definitely think obviously there's going to be elements that people will dig into, obviously, to kind of look. I think when you talk about Maestro, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because I think as this conversation kind of rages on and will continue to rage on leading up to the 18th of March, I think a little bit is fatigue more than anything else, and I've tried to really make this point, and I could totally be wrong. So anyone in the comment section who wants to tell me I'm wrong, please go for it. But I think one of the things that I really feel is happening is people are just fatigued by gamma monsters, right? And I think at this point, after grinding Abomination, one of two, like without counting the robots, you really face Abomination and Taskmasters, right? So, you do your
Yeah,
dailies every day, right? And you're playing against Abomination, Abomination, Abomination. And then, you kind of get to Maestro and you think, oh, Maestro is this, Maestro is that. And then, the announcement didn't do a lot of detail on Maestro. The press footage, I would even argue, didn't show a lot of the differences that Maestro may have. So because of that, it's almost like a
yeah,
fatigue that is setting in because of that, right? Now, we may actually get to the 18th. And to be fair, like I said, I'm excited to fight Maestro. I think just kind of a new backdrop, a new villain, even if there's some similarities there, which, there will share some similarities there. But I think even just fighting him, I'm excited for. But I think it's almost like a fatigue that is set in, right? And I think you can almost make that same conversation for Hawkeye himself, right? It's like people under different circumstances would be excited for him, but I think there's almost like a fatigue of like two gamma monsters, two archers, right? Even if
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's not like these characters are bad. It's not like these villains are bad. It's not like these bosses are bad to fight. I think it's just a community wide fatigue that is like set in, maybe. And maybe I'm off base there. It just almost seems like
Mm.
I don't know if I'm articulating it well enough, but like maybe that's kind of the point that they're trying to make, and maybe they can't make it, and I'm trying to make it for
I,
them.
th-
But like, yeah, go
I,
go
I
go.
think, I think the problem is that like there's a lot in this war table that, again, because we have a month away, we can look into it deeper and we can be
Mm-hmm.
cynical about it. Like, for example, the wasteland. Really, if you wanted to be an arse about it, you could say that, oh, Utah Badlands with destruction and spikes in the ground. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I've seen that.
with Hawkeye's movements and stuff like that, like his rocket arrows. Oh, that's just Iron Man's missile heavy attack. Oh, the scatter shot. Oh, it's basically Kate 2.0. And then with Maestro, it's like, oh, it's Abomination. You see Taskmaster again. You think, great, Taskmaster and a Gamma Monster. Oh, we haven't seen that before. And it's like,
Right.
and the thing is, you get it because they haven't gone into enough detail to be like, okay, these look similar, but here's how we've made them different from what you've already seen. And I
Yep.
think that the worst mistake they could have made, and this is genuinely what I think, is having Taskmaster anywhere near the trailer. Like, because fingers crossed, we don't even have to fight him. Fingers crossed, old Clint just kills him straight away, right?
Yeah.
Just straight arrow to the head, no problems. And it was just a dupe. But I don't want to even see him in my advertisement because I you shouldn't be advertising the problems,
It's a good
right?
point. That's a good
You
point.
know,
Yeah.
you- you're advertising all the problems that people are concerned with. I saw Taskmaster, and before I even saw the release date, I was like, "Oh no,"
Mm-hmm.
And then they show the villain sectors on the table, and you think, "Well, one's going to be Taskmaster because you've just
Yep.
shown me."
Yep.
So now, one of them's probably Maestro, one of them's probably Taskmaster, and you'd assume just by the fact there's aimbots still around that the other two will be warbots and the flying one.
Yep.
And it's like, oh come on! And then you see the release date, you think a month, what for more of the same, and then you get cynical about it.
Yeah.
Even though if it was coming out next week, you'd be able to see how awesome Clint looks without trying to compare it, and maybe you could appreciate Maestro a bit more. And if Taskmaster is there, at least it's only a week from like us having Taskmaster anyway, so it's kind of like even if he is just a quick boss fight, it's like okay, whatever, just get past this, we'll move on.
Yep.
But it's like we have a month, and then we've finally gotten through this month, and it's like fight Taskmaster, and it's and I do get it. I get the stress about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just one of those things where it's like, for as good as Hawkeye looks, and like I said this on the stream, I think Hawkeye looks a lot of fun. I said it in the press footage. I think Hawkeye was done dirty in the deep dive compared to the press footage.
Yeah,
Like I said, I think there's a lot to be excited about, but I think it's all these little. It's like the core of it, which is Hawkeye, looks really good, and you expand it out, and it's like, oh, the wastelands look pretty cool, but then you start getting all these little like all these little things that are orbiting around this DLC, and these are the issues. Now it's like maybe if they had come out and kind of addressed some of these things or kind of focus on some of these things in the deep dive, maybe then you start taking these away, and maybe these aren't the issues that people think they are, right? But because of that,
yeah.
and 100%, I think it's just like they missed the mark in their communication, And I said this too, and I could totally be wrong, but I don't know if it's a disconnect between the community and Crystal Dynamics, or I don't know if it's a disconnect inside Crystal Dynamics, right? Where some people want to show one thing, some people want to show another, and one side gets ruled over. Like I can't speak to what may be happening inside the studio, but it just seems like sometimes it just the mark is missed, and it's just
Yeah,
and unfortunately, and I'm really trying not to be hard on these guys, but it seems like every week I'm saying the mark is missed, and like maybe this week, and we could touch on Andy's quick little statement in revealing stream, but it seems like
yeah,
maybe this is the kind of this might have to be the kind of um the kick in the butt, so to speak, right? Because if you miss this mark with Black Panther, I don't think you're coming back. Like I think that's it, right? Like in the community's heads, Black Panther is kind of like the push to kind of legitimize this game in a lot of different ways, right? And if you miss that announcement, if you in the nicest way possible, if you fuck up that announcement, people aren't going to be as forgiving as they might be with a Hawkeye announcement, because that
yeah,
character and what we know about it, we could touch on, like, we know that there's a raid coming, we know there's this coming, we know there's that coming, like, and I said this before the deep dive itself. I said, if you gave a little bit of Black Panther, maybe this all isn't that big of an issue. You know what I mean? Like
uh,
maybe the Panther effect kind of negates a lot of this kind of bickering that is going on because people know he's coming. They know there's going to be something more on the horizon. They know there's this big chunk of content that is coming afterwards, right? So it's like, okay, like maybe this isn't the greatest thing. There's some elements here that maybe I don't agree with, but Panther's coming after, so I'll kind of just ease through this, play it, whatever, get through it. But then I know when Panther's on the way, like I'm gonna get real excited for that. You know what I mean? Like maybe
yeah,
they
yeah,
they could have done something like that, and maybe that's where they could have saved themselves a little bit of the a little bit of the kind of bickering. I say bickering, but I don't mean it in a bad way. But like the back and forth that is going on within the community, maybe Panther saves a little bit of that. You know?
Yeah, I think the thing is that like with this war table, obviously there's a lot of people that, like I said before, see Hawkeye as their favorite hero, like
Mm-hmm.
as in above Panther, above the Spider-Mans, above the rest of the Avengers, right? And I think that like for them, this war table was their Black Panther, and I think that if I've seen Hawkeye fans love it, and so for
Mm-hmm.
them, they're won over. But Hawkeye fans compared to Black Panther fans, there's probably a different amount there, right? And that's
Yeah.
just to me, that's just fact. We see it with anything, Black Panther has his own movie, Clint's getting a TV series. That's the levels, right?
Yep.
And I think that I totally agree with you that this Panther thing, we know there's a raid coming, we know this and that's coming. Thing is, though, there's only so many of us in the community that, in all due respect to him, follow Miller. There's some people who don't even go on Twitter that play this game who don't have a clue
Yep.
about Panther being on the way, minus the little teases that they've shown themselves. They don't know any raids are coming. They don't know anything about cloning labs and so on, because we only get that through digging in the
Yes.
community.
Yep.
And it's like, for example, they put the weekly challenges up, that little panel they have.
Mm-hmm.
That could always have a miniature version of their Twitter posts, just a little like how's the week's going and stuff, like what we've posted or what we've spoken about. Like they could put something like, oh, we did the Hawkeye War Table last week on the game so that no one misses out. So
Yeah.
therefore, at least if people who are more in depth in the community, who go digging, will won't be the only ones to have to look at this war table and obviously have our opinions on it. There can be complete casual people who watch that and think, wow, that was actually all right, because they don't see what we see in regards to the ever-growing problem with that war table, for example.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point there that like, well, let me expand on your point a little bit because you kind of started something here, and maybe I'm gonna finish in a way you may not agree with, but when you say that there's only a certain amount of people that know about Panther and the raid and everything, like you're 100% right, like, and I don't always make this point. The people who are very outspoken in the community are the minority compared to the people who just log in and play. That's just the reality of the situation, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, but because of that, it feels like if they announce some things, get people excited, a lot of the time word of mouth can either sink or swim with your game, right? And I think when there's only so many people who follow the in-depth discussion or the leaks or something like that, I feel like a moment like this where this is kind of your big kind of like announcement, you have to go just a little bit more. You have to do it just a little bit more, and that's why I really feel like they missed the mark with Panther. Like I said,
Yeah, yeah.
and I like I said, I know Hawkeye fans like this was your day, and in some respects you got your day, and in some respects they did you a little dirty by keeping the coolest footage in the press kit, but I just feel like they just missed the mark a little bit, and I feel like um and I don't know what the reason is. I don't know why there's no Panther. I don't know what's going on. Like we know he's coming. We know he's being worked on. We know there was another voice line that leaked this week, right? Like we know all this
Yeah.
stuff is kind of being worked on actively right now. So it's like, why can't you guys talk about him? Why can't you guys show a little bit of him? Like it just feels like there's, and like I said, I maybe we're just gonna beat around this bush the whole day today, but like it just feels like there's just I don't know how much I really want to say because like it just feels like they're just missing the mark, like it just feels like they're not doing as much as they want to, or maybe they can, and because of that,
Mhm.
people are just kind of gonna sit here and kind of talk about the shit that really doesn't matter, and instead we should be talking about why wasn't there any sort of announcement leading up to or like afterwards of like anything coming after Hawkeye, like no, don't get me wrong.
Uh,
I don't think the game's fucking ending anytime soon. But I think when you don't announce you don't even tease your next big DLC, which is coming after Hawkeye, Like, there's genuine anxiety in the community. I see this every day. I see people literally say like, oh, like after Spider-Man, once their contractual obligations done, they're fucking out of here. I see this anxiety
Yeah,
every day. Like, this can't be like falling on deaf ears here. I know these people at Crystal Dynamics, I know they have to see this like every single day. So when you have an opportunity that's served up to you, why not take it? Like, why not
yeah.
go to the plate and swing for the fucking fences here and say, hey guys, listen, you want to see some shit? Let's see some shit. Like, you want Panther? Here's fucking Panther. You want Spider-Man? See Spider-Man. You want fucking Bucky? Here's Bucky. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at this point, like, when your community actively, like, when there's elements of your community that actively think that you're fucking out of here in the next 6 months, fucking go out there and show that you're not,
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
I, th- I think that, like, if I was gonna put a silver lining in the release date at all, it could be that March 18th isn't just a release date for, just, oh, they need to finish off Clint at all. I have this feeling, and I don't. Again, I have no special inside information. It's all speculation.
Liar.
That I do know Calyx. No, uh, like the thing is that I think it's so far away because they're wanting to release a lot of their backlog. It will shock me if it gets to March 18th with next gen release and there is no campaign replay, for example. So they've, to me, that's a priority, right? And things like labs, things like Adaptoid, then getting Clint out, making sure he's relatively bug free, all the stuff in the backlog. And that's why I do believe that we're waiting so long. But I feel like for some reason they can't communicate that, because if they say, hey guys, by March 18th, you'll have this stuff that you've been asking for months, then you're committing to a promise that they may not be able to keep. But I do think that by March 18th, if everything goes their way, finally, we'll maybe having a different conversation about why this release date made sense. However, if it's just Clint and there's still some bugs in Clint to deflate the community, and next gen release date, next gen launch goes, okay, but say there's another like reset issue or something, like some sort of bug for the reset, and there is no labs, there is no Adaptoid, there is no campaign replay, which would be insane. Then that's a kick in the teeth. And I would totally come back to this conversation and be like, okay, I should have shut up. But I have faith that they're at least trying to get everything sorted by the time March 18th rolls around.
Well, let me throw it to you on this question then, because obviously on the PlayStation YouTube they threw up a trailer which was dedicated to next gen story. Now,
Mm.
I'm not gonna read too into this. I'm not doing like the ancient aliens thing here, where I'm gonna connect dots that don't exist. But I
Yeah.
will ask a question. Do you believe that New Game Plus is coming with next gen launch, so people who may have new systems can play the campaign again on their new system? Is that something you actually foresee? Now, I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire on this one. Just kind of give me your best guess here. Is this something you actually think is going to happen?
I think it makes absolutely the most sense in the entire world. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you've given people this shiny Marvel's Avengers game without being able to replay your best asset.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, if
Mm-hmm.
you release this next gen copy with or upgrade or whatever, because I've already got a PS5 and I've got the game on there. But if you don't release the next New Game Plus, then you've missed the mark on that, because
Yeah.
that's your best asset, and that keeps people entertained for just a little bit longer, because then you'd have that, you'd have Clint, you know what I mean? You'd have the stuff, you'd have leveling up Clint for a little bit. You have like a couple of weeks worth of just being able to replay the campaign that people have, to be honest, missed. Is one of the best parts of the game, I think. And obviously you've got Clint as well. So then at least you have time to, sort your stuff out for the next batch of content or news or whatever. But if it's not out by then why did you even bother releasing a next gen thing anyway, when you should have just focused all hands on deck on Clint and then worried about next gen
Yeah.
like afterwards, because it would, because what's the point of next gen if you can't replay the campaign? Do you know what I mean? I don't
Well,
really.
yeah. I mean, like that's a great point because I guess like even for people who are coming fresh into the game, right? Like maybe they see this trailer, like, oh, next gen story, like they have a next gen console. Maybe this is a game they pick up, after so many months, right? And then
Yeah,
if you don't, like I agree, like if they miss the mark on this one, then it's like why did you bother in the first place? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and like I said, and I maybe I'll catch some flack for this one too, but I think once you get New Game Plus, like just leave the campaign alone, like bury it, get rid of it, move on. Like, you know what I mean? I think New Game Plus is that last hurrah, and I know I'll probably replay it on the channel here. I'll probably
yeah,
I'm looking at I'll probably pick up like a 4K monitor and whatever, fuck it, like, but I think at some point, like once that's done, like it's done. Like let's get out of here, like situation. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Like, and I think there might, and I think that's where a lot of frustration comes from too. Now I'm gonna take us down to like a little segue here, but I think now
okay.
you could totally tell me I'm fucking stupid on this one. I think there's a little bit of animosity in the community between people who want new content and people who want New Game Plus. And because of that, there's people who are like very excited for the replay of the campaign, and there's people who are very what's the word I want to use? There are people who are very jaded over it because like they feel that the effort and focus that it's going towards New Game Plus is potentially taking away development resources towards a new content. And because of that, I feel like there's just kind of like once again this like animosity in the community because of these two differing elements of the game. And unfortunately, Crystal Dynamics is trying to do both of them at once. Now,
Yeah,
and I think the what needs to happen is that once New Game Plus is done and it's wrapped up, then people who are on that side they get their campaign, they get to replay it, they can play through this mission, that mission, they can do the whole thing over again if they want to. And then people who want new content, to them, you know the development resources are technically then whatever is being used towards that are then now freed up to go towards new stuff.
yeah,
So hopefully now, if New Game Plus does arrive on the 18th with next gen launch, now these two different sides of the community, it's like the handshake, like now they can shake hands and move on and be happy as long as new content keeps pumping out. But yeah, no, I agree with you that at this point, if this March 18th date just has um Clint, ooh, like I don't know.
yeah.
I,
Like if it's just Clint and then a shiny version of Avengers that comes out with nothing else following it, I think that people will think what took them so long.
yeah,
But this is why, like, and again, without being really harsh, there is nothing that should point me towards the idea that March 18th is going to have everything that we wanted there.
yep,
But it just seems to be like they know it's a relaunch. They're just not treating it as such, right? Like they're not giving it a fancy new name. At the moment, they're not giving it a fancy new cover, and they're sticking with their guns. But if you're gonna do that, you've got to give people more than just what we have at the moment. Because what we have at the moment isn't working,
yep,
and they
yep,
must know that. So if the game is, chock's full of the stuff that you had promised or mentioned during these last few months, then at least then members of the community that have been here since day one can at least take a breather and be like, okay, at least they've done that.
true. Let me ask you about something that's not working. So, Miller had tweeted some things out, and I kind of echoed this sentiment that it seems like there's a growing feeling that at this point maybe it's time just to release labs
Yeah, no, I saw this. Yeah, yeah,
and maybe deal with the bugs as is. Like let's call like a spade a spade. This game has not been short of any sort of bugs out there. We've all dealt with some bugs to some extent, some worse than others. But maybe it's time that we just kind of get labs and we live with the bugs and we just play it as is. Maybe at this point we just let it rip. You know what I mean? Like, I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on this because I'm actually increasingly believing that maybe this is the best foot forward for Cloney Labs at this point.
I'll be perfectly honest. I think the thing that was holding labs back and OOTs in general is the multiplayer aspect, and they've mentioned that I think on their dev stream before.
Yeah,
And I was
the
playing,
multiplayer bug. Yeah.
yeah, and I was playing with my friend Sonic Photo. He's on PS4, on PS5, and we live in two different areas of the world. And multiplayer ran incredibly smoothly. Like we
Hmm.
played loads of games together, and that was after the recent maintenance, performance, patch, optimization thing. And I made sure that that was like I made sure that anyone around me heard how good I had that experience in because of their wanting to release cloning labs. If I had that experience, I would be pretty happy with that. I would be more than happy with that. So I agree with you completely that obviously not everyone's going to have the same experience. You know what I mean? Like I'm just going off my own thing because I can't see through everyone's telly. But um, I think that cloning labs, like you said, should definitely be released now. I think it's a band aid that needs to be pulled off. I think it's the case of people have wanted it for so long. It just seems like too much is going into this when it's only one mission, right? Like this amount of work feels like it should be put into like an entirely new game, let alone
Well,
one mission, right? And
well, yeah.
it's
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the bug itself is spread over like all these longer missions, right? So like it's not just centered around labs. For example, like this bug is also impacting Super Adaptoid, and then as these missions do get longer, I imagine it's probably also impacting multiplayer Mega Hive, right? Which is something they actually haven't talked
mm,
about in forever, right? I can't remember the last time I've heard anything about multiplayer Mega Hive. But at this point, like I think when it comes to labs specifically, regarding like even if this bug is impacting, maybe hits you one every 5 runs or whatever. I think at this point, just release it, get some, even if people have some issues, at least let us kind of decide whether or not to play it or not. I don't think at this point, if you release it next month, the month after, fuck, even say for example they release it next week, I think at this point people are just kind of over the waiting, and it's not going to have the impact that you really thought it would fucking
yeah,
November, you
all,
know what I mean?
yeah, all this work for people to just be like, oh, labs, yeah, because
Hmm.
obviously people have been so burnt out by waiting. Like there was a time where like when the game was sort of like just talking about these things that I thought any Thursday now the reset's gonna happen and it's gonna come up and I'm gonna be playing it and I think that I would like to imagine this multiplayer bug is holding back a lot of things that are hopefully already done.
Hmm.
This is what I mean. Like they said, Labs is done. I imagine Super Adaptoid is done because
Yeah.
they advertised it in the Kate thing. So this is why I also say that March 18th seems like a fair stopping point to be like, all right, we're releasing it then no matter what,
Hmm.
because that gives them a lot of time. Clint looks pretty much obviously they want us to see that he's done. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're not going to show any broken footage, but you would imagine he's extremely close considering
Hmm.
it's a month away. So, you focus on those things. You think to yourself, okay, multiplayer fix, we'll get that out. Unless it's already out. Maybe it's already been done. Like, I've not seen any bad reports about multiplayer since that maintenance thing.
No, I'm just trying to think. Usually I hover in the official Discord, and I've not really seen anyone say multiplayer crashes or whatever. Even for myself, I've been logging in more over the last few days, and I can't I don't think multiplayer has been that bad for me personally.
mm,
Or at least nothing I can report back on, I should say. But it all
yeah.
seems fine. I don't know if that is part of the fix that may go in. And listen, I caught some flack for this over on Twitter this week when I said these optimization and these maintenance, maybe they are kind of leading on the path towards cloning labs or something. But
Yeah.
but in no way do I think it's an immediate release, right? I don't think this is coming next week, for example. And I don't want people to take my words or your words and think oh, we think they're coming anytime soon. Personally, I think labs is way off still.
Yeah.
But I also believe that when they know labs is coming, they're gonna beat that drum really fucking hard because they're gonna want us to know labs are coming. um but yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it's on and it's coming anytime soon. Even though I would like to kind of just wake up and like see my Twitter blow up saying like Labs is out, Labs is out, Labs is out, and then like call work and be like, yeah, I got explosive diarrhea. Sorry, I can't come in today. You know what I mean? Like I would love
Yeah,
I would love nothing more than for that situation to happen. I just don't think at this point it's anytime soon. I would think that if you kind of follow your logic here, that maybe the 18th is kind of like the day where you just get it all out, you know, like everything
yeah,
that's been sitting there regardless, like I don't like at this point if the 18th launches and Labs comes and like, hey guys, like Labs is still like a very experimental with the networking, like you may run into issues. Yeah, fuck it, dude, I don't give a fuck. Like
yeah.
get
It's
this.
at that point where people just don't read the warning sign and run straight into the danger zone. Like
I,
that's what it's got to be.
I'm gonna run in regardless. I'm gonna read the warning sign, acknowledge it, be like, yep, cool, and I'm still gonna run in because at this point I think the game just needs it because we've been so far away from like what the intended release date was that I think at this point it's just like just get it out there, you know. At this
Yeah,
point let's just kind of call a spade here and just kind of move on. And they'll like, here's the thing, this bug has to be fixed before the raid, like let's call it as it is. If they release a raid or they delay the raid with Panther because of this bug, I mean, like like this, but this has to be fixed. So at this point, just release it, call it, and let's play some Cloney Labs. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's just
yeah.
personally where I'm at with it. Um, okay, but let's kind of backtrack here. Give me your final thoughts on the deep dive and the next gen infographics and how that whole thing kind of took place this week. Give me your final thoughts and fuck it, rate it out of 10 for me if you want.
Well, I've already rated it out of 10 to a lot of my friends nearby. I'd give it a 5 out of 10. It was
Okay.
like, for me personally, it was very mid. It was like exactly as it says on the tin. No special surprises. In fact, even less than it says on the tin because we never really went into detail about a lot of his moves. We just saw it. They put a Twitter post about the boomerang arrow being an intrinsic attack with light attack, and his grapple being an intrinsic heavy attack. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
it would have been nice to have known that wasn't one of his 3 arrows, for example, right? Like
Yeah.
you could have said that and just told us that in the video showcase. But
Mm-hmm.
sure, I'll wait for you to put a Twitter post up, and that's sort of why, like, I thought, yes, it was cool. But it would have been better, and it would have actually been really good if the game was in a better position right now.
Yeah.
um, it seemed to, obviously this isn't what they were going for, but it almost seemed too confident of a war table, and for the state of the game at the moment, it just seemed like, okay, they just want to see some Hawkeye. Here's a video just showing some Hawkeye. It's like, no, we wanted loads more than that,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And that's why 5 out of 10 I think is probably my rating, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think I'm gonna echo you and say probably like a 5 out of 10 for me. I think my biggest issues, kind of as we wrap up here this part of the conversation, obviously, the biggest issue for me was definitely what they showed of Hawkeye wasn't enough of Hawkeye.
Hmm.
They definitely could have gone into a lot more detail of Hawkeye himself. They could have gone into and like, listen, maybe I'm gonna catch some flack over this. I know Lucky is beloved, but I don't think Lucky deserves as much of the spotlight as he got. You know what I mean? Like, I think in terms of,
The 5 minutes or what it felt of him walking into shot at the start made me so angry.
yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, everyone's gonna like the dog. Like, let's call it a, like, everyone's gonna like the dog. But I don't, like, I just want more information. When you give me a deep dive, like deep dive, like
Yeah.
give me some examples of like how these moves work. Give me some situational kind of context to some of these moves. Give me some breakdown of what kind of gear we should be expecting to get. Give me a breakdown of all these things that are happening. Give me a breakdown of the wastelands. Give me a breakdown of Maestro. Like, give me a breakdown of like how many missions we should be expecting, or you know what I mean. Like, just give me a little
Mm.
bit more in-depth information about what we should be expecting when we fire up the game on the 18th with regards to this update. So with that being said, I think they kind of missed the mark there. Obviously the press footage was great. Wanted to see more of that inside of the deep dive. Like I said, I definitely when I showed when I showed some Hawkeye people the press footage, like their response was, why wasn't this in the deep dive, you know? And when
Yeah, yeah,
and I think that's the problem, is like there was so much cool things they could have shown, but they just didn't, right? um so there's that. Obviously the community expectation was a little bit more. They kind of missed the mark on that one. So because of that, there was just some things that were missed in regards to that. But I think there definitely was reasons to kind of walk away excited about Hawkeye and the Wastelands and everything else surrounding it. But I just think the everything else has kind of drowned out that excitement, you know? And I think that's
yeah,
kind of the issue with it, right? So yeah, I mean, like in regards to it, like you said, I kind of echo what you said. If the game was in a better state, this would have been a fine kind of war table or deep dive, whatever they want to call it. But you know, kind of where everything is, the context, the situation, it just felt like it was just not where it should have been, you know. But
yeah. Completely agree.
I think, like I said earlier, I think kind of the ideal situation now is that because of the reaction, and we can talk about this a little bit. We can kind of segue into kind of the stream on Friday now. Ideally, the reaction that they got now helps them moving forward, right? And which is all we can really ask for at this point, right? Like, um, you know, as kind of they do things and maybe they hit, maybe they miss. As long as they kind of take what they've learned and kind of apply it to the next thing, you know, hopefully that's improvement that we see, right? So uh, perfect little segue here into the stream on Friday. So just a little context background. Revealing Too Much over on Twitch TV. I'm not too familiar with him. I've seen a little bit of him, but he held a interview with Hannah. I don't remember her last name, but it's Hannah, who is a writer for the game, as well as Andy was on the stream as well. Andy kind of came up first and foremost and just kind of threw some announcements out there. You're gonna have to correct me if I'm wrong, Stardust here, but first one was obviously they hear us that we want more information, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There
Okay.
was it was a bit of a chat about the release date and stuff like that, and they were saying, you know, obviously, I know he basically said we know the release date was a bit of a whoa sort of moment, but you know, it was just they were allowed to give out the information, they were allowed to put out the war table, so that's exactly what they did.
Okay. And then the second one was the Iron Man costume, right? So he has said that a new Iron Man costume could come as early as next week, correct?
Yep, yep.
Okay. And then the third one, there was a third one, right? Am I missing a third one here? I'm missing a third one. There was
Are
the
you?
maybe? Am I?
I don't. I don't know.
So it was the Iron
Wait.
Man costume. It was the um Iron Man costume. It was the announcement of like I'm missing one. I'm missing one.
I think that's it. I do think that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, then we can kind of just get into kind of the stream itself then. What did you think about kind of the stream itself with revealing and Hannah and Andy, and kind of what did you kind of get from that?
I think from this stream, because they were talking a lot about the story, and again we've mentioned this already, that it's their golden goose at this point, that the main campaign is like sort of like their biggest thing, is that they're clearly really passionate about that side, and because of Crystal Dynamics' history of being obviously story based single player games, you can really tell that that was where they shine the most anyway. So they were more than willing to talk about their. You know, their inspirations and what drove them to do certain choices in the campaign. Like they obviously spoke about Kamala a lot. They spoke about the fact that they have an Avengers family tree, because they like to do this whole like Avengers are a family sort of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
like Cap's the dad, Bruce is the mum, Kamala's the little sister sort of thing, and I thought that was quite nice, and you can hear the passion in Hannah's voice, especially because Andy didn't really speak that much after he gave the announcements. I think he was just there to kind of like watch over. Um, but yeah, Hannah seemed so thrilled to be able to talk about like her work, and it was really lovely to see, and I think that it was a good sign of how much this campaign was actually a lot better than even I remember it, because I had beaten it because I got early access. I'd beaten it on like September 2nd, so I remember just the big story beats. I don't remember the little nice moments in between the big story moments. And like I was watching a live stream the other day of someone going through the campaign with their daughter, and it was really sweet. And there was the moment where Kamala was sneaking out of the anthill, and
Hmm.
going past all the different Roys,
Yep.
and I was like, I love that bit. Why did I forget about that bit?
Yeah.
Like, and and there's loads of moments like that which is why I mentioned how I think campaign replay should be a priority, because a lot of people were more defending of the game, and a lot of people were like, it's okay, give it time, when the campaign was still fresh in their minds, because they remembered how good it was. So if you give them that golden goose again, and if you show them what made you like the game in the first place, then you've got something there. And yeah, they just sounded really passionate. They sounded really just happy to be there. And it was just a nice stream altogether, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, this is one of the things I've kind of echoed privately. That I think when you give your developers a chance to really come out into the forefront and kind of talk about the work that they do, like the passion just kind of oozes from them, right? Because like a lot of these people, we don't really know they exist, and like I'm not saying that as a mean way, but we don't, like, to us these are just faceless people that work on the game, right?
Yeah.
So when you give a chance to different content creators within the community to kind of get those voices out there, I think it's nothing but good. My biggest fear, now I'll be very upfront and transparent. My biggest fear was kind of the reaction that Revealing was going to get. Like I said, I don't know his content. I'm not too familiar with him. By all accounts, it seems like he's just like a fine dude who just like plays the game all the time, which is great. My biggest fear was like kind of coming off the heels of the Hawkeye stuff, that like his chat was going to be like just terrible,
Mm.
just terrible. And for the most part, it seemed pretty well kept. I checked the Discord after, and I think I browsed the subreddit very briefly, but it didn't seem like there was a too much kind of like pushback on this kind of stream, which is nice because like doing things like that and having good reactions to stuff like that means like there's possibly more. And now, like, obviously when it comes to getting developers on stream and like the approval process for it, I mean, like, it could be like 3 weeks. So like this date was kind of locked in, before any of us knew anything to do with like what was coming up on Tuesday. But it's just nice to see that, like, you bring on someone who's like a writer who shows some passion. And it wasn't my like a stream for me. Like, I'm not a writer. I'm not
Mm.
someone who's deep into the writing thoughts. Like, my biggest writing achievement was like writing like an assignment, like a paper in college, and like maybe again like an
Yeah.
85 on it, right? Like, but I think for the people who like are into writing, and I think Revealing's a writer. I had to do some opposition research on him, but Revealing seems to be a writer, so for him that's a really cool opportunity to kind of interview a writer that's working on a game that he currently plays. And to be honest with you, I'd like to see other creators in the community be given access to like these kind of opportunities, right? Because what you're doing, and we can expand this conversation a little bit, but what you're doing is you're taking your existing content creators and you're expanding their portfolio of like things that they can accomplish, right? So now Revealing can add, oh, I interviewed a developer from Crystal Dynamics, and that's something
Yeah.
that he
Yeah.
can hold on to. But not only that, but because he's a writer, he also has that valuable information. Maybe he has a networking kind of side into this now. There's so much more that he can take away from that conversation, even though maybe it doesn't hit the beat for me or some others, but I think for the people who did hit that beat for, that's a really cool thing. For him, it hits that beat for him. But now you look at, maybe there's another creator who can interview an artist, or maybe someone in the networking or engineering side, or maybe they let me interview Scott Amos. No, just kidding. But anyways, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's really cool that they're giving their creators this opportunity to really kind of showcase their developers, right? It's almost like a symbiotic relationship at that point. I would really love to see more of this kind of thing happen, even if it's on like a week that maybe isn't the best week for him. I still think the kind of precedent that this is setting, like, you know what, if you can come to us and you can, and it's not just Andy at this point, I've talked to Andy, I know some others have talked with Andy, but I think if you could start showcasing some of these developers and the passion that they have, maybe it's almost like a PR game at this point, right? Like, you're kind of you're kind of showcasing these people who, like I said, no one really knows, but you're using them as kind of like a PR front to like, hey guys, look at the passion this person exudes for their work. You really think that, this person who's so passionate about writing for Avengers is not going to give you her best effort? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Like
I think that's really cool of them.
like I was watching Revealing stream just before Hannah and Andy jumped on. My
Hmm.
God, the amount of gifted subs that man got from doing this stream was ridiculous. He even said himself, like, I pay my bills with this job. You know what I mean? And you guys have
Hmm.
just smashed like his monthly sub goal was something like 200. He had smashed that before the stream of talking with Andy and with Hannah, and by the end of it, I think he was on like 250.
Yeah.
So like and it's not just it's a double-edged sword of like it works for Crystal Dynamics as well because obviously they're then talking to the community and they're showing their passionate workers that seem so excited to be able to talk about anything Avengers related, which then breaks that rumor of are the team upset or unhappy or whatever. And then you've
Hmm.
also got the other side of the sword where it's like for Revealing, he's just able to pay his rent and more
Yeah.
so, right? And he's
Yep.
obviously he gets the interview he wants because he's a writer too, and he also gets a shed load of eyes on him. Like he
Hmm.
like I think usually uh Revealing gets 60 viewers, and of course having this sort of replacement of the play with the dev stream, he had about 300.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It,
sorry. Yeah. Continue.
he had like notifications about subs and followers and raids and hosts and everything like every 2 seconds, like, and it did so well for him. And
Yeah,
that's
I
yeah.
mean, like this is a perfect conversation here. Maybe we're gonna segue a little bit here, and but, privately, I've been speaking to the powers, and but, we can argue how far that goes. That using your content creators in a way like this is good. Like this game has a lot of content creators, but because the game hasn't really done well in various mediums, these content creators don't get a lot of good publicity because of it. But I think what you
Yeah.
could do is you can start swinging, the Avengers dick around, and you can start pushing these content creators into the forefront, into the spotlight, because there's a lot of good ones here. And the way you do that is perfectly just like the way they did that on Friday was perfectly educated there. It was perfectly done, right? You bring on
Mm.
someone that many people don't know, right? You do it with a content creator that, people may know, may not, but then you kind of host them, you kind of like you what's the word I'm looking for? Publicize that like you're doing this thing with this creator, right? So now the creator gets like a bump from that, and he's not always going to retain 300 viewers. I'm sure he's probably maybe he's 70 now, 80 now, but I think the point is that like you got to start introducing elements of your community to these creators that are out there, right? Like, and maybe this is like the start of kind of that blitz campaign that maybe they're gonna do, because I think at this point, so many games utilize their creators in so many, and I'm going to say it, in so many better ways, right? You have partner programs, you have like streamer giveaways, you have this, you have that, right? And one of the things that I think Avengers is missing is kind of giving people the incentive to watch these creators, right? Not everyone, is going to check in an Avengers streamer right now. Not everyone's going to check in an Avengers video right now. But I think if you start giving people incentives to kind of check these people out, maybe then, these creators get more popular. Maybe Avengers gets more popular as a streaming game or a viewing game. Maybe there's like a cascading effect that happens because of all these things. Creators get more popular, so maybe they can start, doing this more or more often. They can make more money, so on and so forth. But I think one of the things is they really need to start supporting the creators that have tried to support this game. And like what, and I'm not talking about me, like whatever, I'm fine. But like, for someone like yourself or someone like Suki or Revealing or all these other guys, I can list off a bunch of names and I don't want to like miss anybody. But there's so many creators out there who are passionate about this game. Maybe Crystal kind of throwing them a bone here and saying, you want to interview somebody, you want to talk about something. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe we do like, maybe they do like a creator reveal. I had this comment a few weeks ago where it's like maybe Crystal can kind of give some of their content creators like a reveal, and they all reveal it at the same time. You know what I mean? Give all these creators like a bump in that regard, right?
Mm.
There's just so many ways that they could support the creators, and it's nice to see Revealing kind of get like a bump because of this, right? Like it's just nice to see someone get that kind of bump because like they're utilizing a creator that's in their space. You know what I mean?
I think the thing is as well is that revealing. I mean, he was never doing that bad to begin with. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like I think he had something like 4,000 followers and stuff beforehand on Twitch,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously is nothing to snuff at. Whereas, like I would say, people like you mentioned, Suki and so on, nowhere near 1,000, right?
Yeah.
Nowhere near 200, right? And that alone is enough to, like, if CD decided to work with, I'll use Suki as an example because I know Suki really well. Um, if say Andy got in contact with Suki and he was like, "Hey, do you want one of us to jump on your stream?" Right, and all of a sudden that boosts Suki up a lot more,
Mm-hmm.
because Revealing already had quite a good viewer base anyway, whereas Suki would get a massive kick in the arse upwards, right, and
Yeah.
that would make CD look great. Yeah, like in the PR department, in the sense of like, oh hey, they've really just elevated someone who I would never have looked at because he would have been on like the fourth list of the Avengers Twitch streams, for example,
Yeah.
or and obviously then Suki gets the chance to be like, they're great. I can't believe they've done that for me. Best day of my life, sort of thing, and that's word of mouth, which
Mm-hmm.
again looks fantastic.
Yeah, it seems like it's just such an easy win. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
ideally, I would like to see more of these. Stardust, do you want to kind of put your name out there for one of these?
I just want to play Division 2 with Andy and put his name in the title. That's all I want.
All
That's all I
right,
want, man.
all right,
No,
all right.
it's. No, I mean, look. Here's the thing. I don't have any intense background in anything, like as in like writing or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I've sort of gone for a different route with my channel where I've gone, let's just have some fun with it. Like, I again, not meaning to accidentally plug myself, but I did a reaction to the War Table and on Twitch, and it was the same reaction you have seen everywhere else, right? So I thought, okay, if I'm going to do a video on it, I want it to be different. I don't want it to be like, oh, it's just me looking at all the negative sides. So I said, I'm going to look for the funny side of it. And,
Mm-hmm.
I was, having a laugh about sort of the things I did enjoy about it. And then at the end, it was like, why can't Taskmaster just die? And like, I was getting fake angry about the fact Taskmaster's back and stuff like that. But there's truth to that. But I think that I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think CD would take one look at some of these videos and just be like, yeah, no. Like, no.
I
Nowhere near
get you.
there.
Listen, I feel the same way. I feel like right now they're looking at my shit and they're going, that guy, yeah, I regret ever talking with him. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe not though. Maybe not. Yeah, I mean, like, I guess at the end of the day, like, I ideally, obviously, I want to see more. I want to see, and I want to see more developers kind of brought to the spotlight. If I can sum this thing up, Revealing, you did a good job, buddy. Like, if you see this, like, I really enjoyed kind of your interview, and kind of Hannah does a great job kind of coming on. Like, a lot of these people aren't really public speakers, so like to hear someone kind of come on and just kind of have a conversation, I think that speaks well to Revealing and the kind of way he can kind of create that atmosphere of just kind of opening someone up. Like I said, I don't know if Hannah is a public speaker. I don't know if she's someone that normally just kind of comes on and speaks to hundreds of people. But regardless, I think Revealing as an interviewer, one of the things you want to do is create that feeling of like this person's comfortable, and I think
Yeah.
having someone that may not be a public kind of face in this game development come on and just kind of talk, I think that speaks to Revealing. I think that speaks to the environment, and obviously shout out to him, shout out to everyone who is involved in that. I would really love to see more. Like I said, any sort of way you can kind of educate people on different game development things and things that go into building a game like this, I think you're doing yourself a favor later down the line.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously for me, if there's feedback I can give, obviously just more. And that's kind of the way I'll sum it up. Unfortunately, it came off on a really rough week, but I think I think even though it was a rough week, I think the reaction to it was pretty positive from what I've seen. So I think that's a testament to kind of what all went into that sort of planning and everything to do with that. So, yeah, I mean, do you have any final thoughts for the streams? Anything, you thought, any sort of feedback, stuff like that?
Um, I think that, like, because I watched a bit, because he was playing some Avengers before he jumped into doing that stream, and he looked so nervous, and he was twiddling his beard. He needed something to do with his hands. His dogs were barking. It seemed like everything was against him before he was doing this interview, and then
Mm-hmm.
obviously he gets like 275 people just jump into his stream at once because CD started hosting him, and and you think to yourself, I would have a breakdown, right? But he composed himself. The dog stayed quiet, luckily for him. He asked his questions, he had his conversation, and obviously there was people in chat being like, can you talk about Spider-Man? And things like, and he's like, no, I
I
can't
would
talk
love
about
to.
Spider-Man. But
Yeah.
and it was focusing on the task at hand, and he did it really well. And because he wasn't letting anyone get to him, he was able to conduct himself really well. And then people got, who were interested in these sort of things, the answers they wanted. So
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to put it. So I guess we could talk about a little bit as kind of like a concluding, maybe we could talk about an article that came out by CBR, which is Comic Book Resources, and this was brought to
yeah,
my attention, and I don't know if I have too many thoughts. And obviously, the article was um, Marvel Avengers, but with X-Men. Like, an X-Men game could be better than Marvel's Avengers. Like, basically, if you're taking, and I'm gonna link this in the description for anyone who's interested in this one. But I guess the article was basically saying if you take the systems in play in Marvel's Avengers and you kind of give it an X-Men facelift, that the game would be better. Now I'm gonna let you kind of start off here because I actually don't. I don't really know if I would play it if it or I would be as interested in it if it was X-Men. But what do you think about this?
I'm gonna get people probably trying to stab me when I say this. I'm not an X-Men fan at all, right? I find them dweeby. I just not a fan. I like Wolverine. I like Cyclops. I like Nightcrawler. That's it, right? I like them when they're them. I don't the whole like X-Man thing. Besides a few stories, like I never watched the cartoons when I was younger.
Okay,
Uh,
stop. You're literally gonna get yourself on like a hit list. You
I'm
never
sorry.
watch you,
I
you've never
needed
watched a
to.
'90s X-Men cartoon. Are you saying that
I
right
know I
now?
did. I did watch it. I just never stuck. I never stuck with it. It wasn't for me. I was
Uh,
I was more into the '90s Spider-Man and stuff like that.
there's gonna be people who literally put you on a hit list now. You know this, right? Yeah, dude. I
Which is
come on
why
here every week and I say some shit that's gonna rustle some jimmies, but you just like unified everyone together against you.
See, there we go. See, now CD can thank me because now everyone's got one common foe.
Oh no, dude.
No,
Oh.
right. No, 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 no. Right. Okay, okay, okay. Listen, right.
Okay, yeah, I'm listening, dude. Hit me with it.
I like the X-Men,
Uh
but
huh.
I prefer many other teams before them.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
So
there we
so
go.
if this was a game that was X-Men, would you be as involved or would you like it as much? I'm assuming the answer is no.
I'd still buy it if it was X-Men. I don't hate them. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like they're just like out of any heroes I would choose, I would rather it be Avengers than the X-Men,
Okay.
or like and I think that giving a game that people have, you know, obviously like this article mentions here, and I'll just take a quote straight out of it, has left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Giving it a makeover of X-Men isn't going to change that, because why would it? Do you know what I mean? I feel like people would be more forgiving at an Avengers game, and it would probably sell better than an X-Men game just because of the films. Like again, it's
True.
just.
True.
And and if you go for an X-Men game and it isn't really good, then we've seen it with X-Men Destiny. Was it a couple of years, like a good few years ago? It was like you can make your own mutant, I think. and it was in sort of a similar vein. I think I could be so wrong when I say that, but either way, the bad X-Men games do not sell well. We've seen that a okay Avengers game obviously can sell well, right?
Right.
So I think that that's sort of the way to look at it. I think. I see now. I'm nervous because I've slagged off the X-Men. like,
I'm not editing this part out, dude. You're gonna take this one to the grave.
that's fine. You know what? I'll take it. Um, but yeah, it's any game that people dislike now. Like if they dislike this game, I can't see why they'll like it with an X-Men makeover. That just seems like personal bias to me. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it just seems like why hate it now because it's Avengers, but love it because it's X-Men. Like
No, I mean
whereas
that's true. Yeah.
like I like the game
Mm-hmm.
Avengers, and I would like it the same amount if it was X-Men, but I have to give it a push to Avengers because there's more characters in Avengers that I like.
That's fair.
So
Yeah,
that
no,
helps.
I think I'm gonna agree with you here that like if you take all the issues that the game currently has, content, communication, delays, bugs, and you just kind of and if you like literally took all of that and you took it from the Avengers game and you implanted it into an X-Men game, nothing changed, just kind of the content and the characters involved. Yeah, I think people would still be upset. I think like an X-Men game could do well. But I think at this moment in time, I think when you talk about maybe like the casual fan base who maybe only remember the X-Men because of the Fox films, or they only really know Wolverine because of Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
I definitely think that there's a lot going against an X-Men game. I think an X-Men game could be done well. I even think an X-Men expansion to this would actually be pretty cool. But I think like if you just kind of put a X-Men paint a coat of paint over the issues that we're facing, I don't think an X-Men game really gets the slack that maybe this art. I don't even, yeah, maybe this article thinks it would. But I mean, like, who knows? I definitely think that it would be interesting. There's always those rumors floating around of like the 3-game deal. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you've Avengers, you have the rumored Guardians game, and I've heard whispers of an X-Men game. That is floating somewhere under Square Enix. Whether I don't know which development team would be working on it, but I've heard whispers of something like that. So,
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean,
maybe.
this.
Hmm.
Sorry. This article like goes through stuff like they could go to a different amount of locations, like the Savage Lands, for example, right? And enemies could be varied from Sentinels to the Brood. But you can say the same thing with Avengers. Do you know what I mean? Like Avengers has an entire category worth of enemies that they could fight. It's just that we haven't got there yet. So
Yeah.
all the things that you say X-Men, it being X-Men could fix, they just do that to Avengers.
True. Yeah.
And it's you could do that with literally any like Marvel team, really.
Yeah, I guess like I think it's taking like the best case scenario and then saying what if the best case scenario was X-Men? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Whereas like
which I mean, people just want the best case scenario for the game we've got right now.
yeah, that's the thing, right? People just want this game to succeed, and then we can once this game is ideally in a better spot, then we can start talking about that Guardians game that's floating around, or maybe that rumored X-Men game that's kind of whispered and hinted at. But obviously you got to start walking before you can start running at this point, right? And
yeah.
we need to start walking here very soon. But I think that's it. That everything I wanted to cover. Did you have anything that you kind of wanted to cover this week? Anything kind of popped up and really kind of struck you as something to kind of talk about?
I think I'm all right, to be
You think you're
honest.
all right? Okay.
I think everything like we spoke about was pretty much what I would have chosen to speak about.
Okay. All right. Well, let me throw it to you then for your plug yourself here. No,
Oh,
round
don't
two,
do this
buddy.
again.
Round
Let's
two.
start
You got no round two, man. You're gonna have to plug yourself every week. So hit me with it.
I don't have anything going on.
No, dude, you just all right. You just
Oh,
be like, all right, guys, I'm Stardust. You can find me at twitch.tv/ or you can find me at YouTube/
no,
or Twitter/. Like, come on,
no,
dude.
don't
Like,
do that because I tried this before and you said you were going to leave it in the description, and then
yeah,
I
but you
looked
okay? No,
silly.
no, no. But there's people who may listen on Spotify or iTunes, or you can find the Assemble podcast there, guys. Just a hint, just a very big red hint in your face. So for the people who are audio listeners, you got to do that for them. All right.
Okay.
Okay,
Um.
you got this. I
we
believe in you.
Okay, right. Guys, go to youtube.com/Stardust on YouTube for YouTube stuff. Go to www.twitch.tv/SlightStardust. My Twitter handle is SlightStardust. I've got the charity thing, but I can't. It's Avengers Assemble Against Cancer for just giving. It's Cancer Fund for Children. I'm going to go into details about when that stream is going to be happening because I don't know if I can wait for March 18th because they got in contact with me and I feel bad for making them wait so long. Um, that's it.
That's it. Okay, no, that's great. Do you have a ballpark then if you can't make the 18th? Like, so when you say they got in contact with you, is that kind of like they like what they walk me through that a little bit there. You can't just sprinkle a few crumbs and then walk away from that.
So all right, so basically they got in contact with me and said, thank you so much for doing this. Do you want a t-shirt? Do you want leaflets? I was like, no, I don't need a t-shirt. Like,
Hmm.
you don't have to give me anything. That makes me feel awful. So obviously I said politely no to that one. And when they were like, okay, so when's the stream happening? We'd like to be there to support. I was like, March 18th. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it felt awful to do that. Obviously, I'm only mentioning this because it's just fact. I'm not mentioning this like
Hmm.
CD, you're holding charity. Right.
Right.
No, but
Right.
like so I thought to myself, like, obviously I was originally going to do it with Clint's release, but because he's such a distance away, maybe like just like a random reset or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, I really need to maybe rethink my plan or just stick with my guns, go for the Hawkeye release date, and just hope that they pack it full of the content that I mentioned. So that's easily like 24 hours with a good spread worth of content right there.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. It's nice that they actually like reached out to you because it shows like they're very appreciative of like the work you're doing. It's always nice. Yeah, I know you don't do it for like obviously the recognition part of it, but it's always nice when you do something and someone's like, "Hey, like we appreciate the work you're doing." You know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
nice
Yeah.
it's a nice little thing. Like that stuff goes a long way. Like, and that's all it is. Just it goes a long way. All right. Well, you were saying?
Oh, okay. Yeah. The thing is with just giving as well is that like when the only way they get the money from like the donations is when you say right, no more donations, close it, done, because that's just how it works. So
Right.
that's another reason why I was thinking to myself like March 18th is a really long while away. So that's also another reason why I might have a think today and come up with a decision later about how I'm going to do it. And I might speak to a few members of the community as well, see if they fancy helping me out. See if, because I remember seeing a suggestion from Dad Panther about doing a relay type thing where like I'll do like a bunch of hours, then I'll throw it over to maybe like Suki and he'll do a bunch of hours and then throw it over to someone else and they do. But obviously, I promised I was going to do a 24-hour not dev stream. Wow, a 24-hour stream. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Keep me in the loop on that. I might be interested in helping you out there. Um, yeah, okay, interesting. Always, it might be interesting too if you could maybe bring some people on, maybe from the organization or whatever, and talk about kind of some of the struggles or challenges that they kind of go through in these times, and maybe something like that. I don't, kind of bring out, and maybe the 3 week runtime is enough for them to plan who you might be able to talk to, and stuff like that. Maybe some ideas
Yeah,
there. So
I might be able to ask some CD folks if they fancy fancy
that's
dropping in for a hello.
well, even that too. Like, I think when you have a 3 week runtime leading up to a charity event, there's a lot of planning that you can do, right? Whether it's you bring on people from the charity or whatever, like, and you can talk to them, or you can reach out to Crystal Dynamics and maybe they can come on and kind of talk to you. Like, and like I said earlier, it takes about 3 weeks for these kind of things to get approved. So maybe you need to get your butt kicked in gear here a little bit and maybe see what you can do, because I think if you can expand the scope a little bit, and obviously I don't know like how much work you have to do, or what do you have going on your plate, but I think if you can expand the scope a little bit and try to incorporate some other people, I think you probably have something there that um is going to be a lot more work than you were expecting. But I think the payoff in terms of how much more money you could raise, or like the reach that you can get, maybe
Yeah.
goes farther than what you were thinking originally, right? Which might be, and like I said, maybe that 3 weeks is maybe like a blessing in disguise for you personally, and like your plans for that kind of situation, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, like obviously I'll be back at college soon. Not like obviously inside, I'm still in the lockdown and stuff, but like I'll be
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the work and stuff like that. And then obviously I want to do this focus on the stream a little bit. So like you said, that time frame's actually probably a blessing in disguise for me, and
Yeah.
that's sort of something I'm looking forward to. This is why I desperately hope that my prediction about like every backlog thing is going to be ready by then is true, because obviously that gives me a lot to mess around with. So
Yeah, hopefully it is true. All right, guys. Well, if you want to help start us out, I'll be putting the link to the charity drive in the description below. But make sure you give him a follow. Make sure you kind of stay tuned for his news. I'll keep pestering him about it every week that he's on, and we can find out more information about that as it kind of gets closer. But for me, you guys know the deal. If you guys like this stuff, subscribe to the channel. I got some schedule stuff coming. Obviously, I'm back at work, so obviously stream times are going to be kind of fucked up. So I gotta figure that out. So it'll be a stream on Tuesday this week, guys. If you're watching this and it's not Tuesday yet, I'll be streaming on Tuesday. If you're watching this and it's after Tuesday, well, you kind of missed it. So that is gonna be happening. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. And I will see you guys later on this week. And I will see you guys back here next week with Stardust for another Avengers recap, where we'll cover everything to do with the game in the week that we just had, and look forward to the week that is coming. If you guys have any questions, make sure you tweet at either Stardust or myself, and we'll do our best to kind of answer any questions, talk about some things, and we'll just kind of keep it from there. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you guys so much for supporting, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Peace.
bye.